Number 10. Spider-Ham. You may remember Spider-Ham from Into the Spider-Verse. He was voiced perfectly by comedian John Mulaney. Known for his hilarious cartoon nonsensical humor and love of hot dogs, his character has been loved by many fans of the Spider-Verse film and comics. In the comics, Spider-Ham was originally just a spider living in May Porker's basement. Using his brilliant intellect, he had invented the hairdryer in Earth 8311. He and May test it out, but something went wrong and it irradiated her and caused her to bite Peter. The radioactive pig bite transformed Peter into a pig, but he discovered he still had his spider-like abilities. He adopted the name Peter Porker after May also became delusional and seemed to think that he was her nephew, acting as his loving aunt. Number 9. Spider-Man. More fun than Peter Parker could ever be, and probably the least like him in terms of origins and catchphrase. We have Japanese Spider-Man. Takuya Yamashiro was just a normal motocross racer. See what I mean? Already cooler than Peter, until he met a dying alien from Planet Spider named Garia. This alien gave him some of his magic blood, which gave Takuya spider-like abilities as well as a flying car that fits inside of a giant mech bot. But that's not all. Takuya also won a spider bracelet that does a variety of things and allows him to control all of his new vehicles. This Spider-Man is on a mission to protect the Earth from an alien invasion led by Professor Monster. Basically, this is Power Rangers but with Spider-Man, except that it actually came out in the 70s, before Power Rangers existed. Say what? Also, this Spider-Man has no qualms using guns, so watch out for Spider-Man. Number 8. Penny Parker. If you like mechs, you'll love Penny Parker. Of course, Penny also quickly became famous after her appearance in Into the Spider-Verse as well, but even before that, I loved her. The character was created by writer Gerard Way and artist Jake Wyatt. Penny is a regular 14-year-old high school girl until her parents die. She is asked to pilot the SP//DR mech by her aunt and uncle that her dad once piloted. Accepting, she is bitten by a radioactive spider that allows her to be in tune with the suit's controls. If you're a Pacific Rim fan, you'll probably also like Penny Parker. It also features a rival named Addie Brock, Earth 14512's version of Eddie Brock. Addie is the pilot of another mech called VENOM. We've also encountered a version of Morbius known as M.O.R.B.I.U.S, who is like an energy drinking kaiju. Number 7. Spider UK. William Braddock is Earth 833's version of Spider-Man, or he was. We'll get to that in a minute. He is the one who first noticed the inheritors and spider totems disappearing. He is granted a talisman that allows him to basically dimension hop. Think Rick's portal gun, making him the Spider-Man who has probably visited the most alternate Earths. He began to recruit alternate versions of Spider-Man to create a spider army and defeat the inheritors in the Spider-Verse series. He was successful, but while this was going on, his Earth was destroyed as a result of an incursion in the Time Runs Out event. The inheritors would later return due to an inheritor cloning engine being activated on Earth 616. Billy and the Great Weaver were alerted of this and Spider UK heads there to deal with it, having the Great Weaver contact his own spider team, the Web Warriors, to join him. He ends up being one of the first killed in the events of Spider-Geddon when Verna snaps his neck, probably one of the bravest Spider-Man alternates around. Number 6. Spider-Man 2099. Miguel O'Hara becomes Spider-Man in the future in 2099 on Earth 928. This Earth had a past similar to that of Earth 616, but heroes are all but extinct and the world is now run by giant corporations. Miguel is a brilliant geneticist who happens to work for one of these corporations. Alchemix makes a variety of consumer products and is originally a diabolical corporation which later becomes somewhat of a better corporation through different leadership. Miguel works there trying to recreate the abilities of the original Spider-Man by experimenting on human test subjects. Due to a lab accident, he ends up accidentally but successfully splicing his own DNA with that of a spider's, granting himself the spider-like abilities. His character is interesting for a variety of reasons. His suit, the futuristic world he comes from, but also his character development. Miguel goes from being kind of a jerk to steadily becoming a better person as he becomes more aware of what's really going on in the world and his responsibilities, especially once he is superpowered. Number 5. Jessica Drew. Probably one of the snarkiest spider alternates around, Jessica Drew really has some of the best dialogue when it comes to these alternates. She is the best friend of Captain Marvel, which also lends to some pretty great dialogue between the two heroes. If you don't believe me, then you haven't read Spider-Woman Volume 5, but you should. Her origin story is also one of the craziest. As a young girl, she grew up in a home that was close to a uranium deposit. After 3 years of living there, she got very sick. The really weird part is I think her parents knew that there was uranium there. Her dad was a brilliant scientist, well I mean he wasn't too brilliant if he exposed them all to uranium poisoning, and he used an experimental arachnid serum to help cure his daughter. However, it wasn't working fast enough, so he and his colleague Herbert Wyndham, aka the High Evolutionary, or he would become the High Evolutionary later, put her in a genetic accelerator. The genetic accelerator turned out to be probably the slowest working genetic accelerator ever, but it kept young Jessica safe in a stasis-like state. When she finally emerged, she was a grown woman with spider-like abilities, and pretty much no context as to how the world worked, as she had spent almost all of her life in an accelerator. Oddly enough, she almost also immediately got a boyfriend. Pretty strange considering that when she was last conscious, she was approximately 4 years old. What? Though her original origins were not as strange as this, it was also pretty weird before they even retconned it. Spider-Woman was supposed to actually be a spider who had been turned into a human. She definitely is one of the oddest in terms of plot points in her stories. In volume 6 of her Spider-Woman series, she actually defeated an entire host of Skrulls who had invaded an alien maternity ward immediately after giving birth. Oh yeah, and she had a C-section too, so how did she do that? Doesn't seem physically possible. Number 4. Spider-Punk. I just love Hopper Brown more than the original Earth 616 Peter Parker for his attitude and his style. You can see a good amount of him when he fights against the Inheritors in Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon. And on his own Earth, he has come up against Norman Osborn and defeated his Earth's version of Venom with his sweet, sweet guitar. Obviously, Spider-Punk is also in a rad punk rock band. He's also a member of Spider UK's Web Warriors. Number 3. Spider-Man Noir. Voiced by Nicolas Cage in the film Into the Spider-Verse, what is there not to love about this dark and moody version of Spider-Man? He is probably the most popular alternate with fans. The comic style for the Spider-Man Noir series actually evokes the film style of the same name from the 1930s. It is dark, bleak, and dramatic. And this version of Peter is as well. Who doesn't want to see Spider-Man slinging pistols and sneaking around in the shadows? Number 2. Spider-Gwen. Another star from Into the Spider-Verse, this alternate was first introduced to the comics in 2014, and as soon as she was announced, she immediately took off. Her comics weren't even out yet, but thanks to an announcement on Twitter that showcased Robbie Rodriguez's eye-catching design for the hero, she was an instant favorite. Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez really wanted to change things up for this version of Gwen. They made her a drummer with attitude, who becomes the hero in her own reality after she is bitten by that famous radioactive spider. They also gave her a role reversal in terms of her and Peter's story. In her reality, she ends up accidentally killing Peter. Peter becomes the lizard, wanting to be special and get back at his bullies, and in a fight with Spider-Gwen, she accidentally kills him, not knowing it was Peter until it was too late. Constantly killing each other for all of eternity. Number 1. Miles Morales. I mean, I can't mention Gwen without mentioning her multi-dimensional crossed bae, Miles. I love these two together. Not only is Miles better than Peter in Into the Spider-Verse in terms of out-awkwarding him, but he gets included on this list because he also has a ton of abilities that just make him more powerful, namely his camouflage ability. He is also able to control the electricity in his body and use it to fire venom blasts, similar to Jessica Drew actually. But he is able to do more than just even that with his electricity. If that's not enough for you, in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon show, he is voiced by the amazing Donald Glover. When Glover lends his voice to something, you know it's cool.
Starting us off in at number 10, Old Man Logan Venom. Let's start off our list with an alternate version that most of us can't help but love. We're talking the Venomized T-Rex and Old Man Logan. When Logan, who, if you have not read this alternate universe story, is old and trying to keep his family afloat, but also had to retire his claws because he accidentally killed all of the X-Men, agrees to help a now blind Hawkeye across America as a means of paying back a debt to the Hulk, who is now They cross through the Savage Land. Still with me? And who's in the Savage Land but none other than a Tyrannosaurus Rex that Venom has bonded to, naturally. It chases them, and only recently we learned why Venom had beef with them and chased them. It wasn't just pure rage or hunger or whatever else drives T-Rexes to do what they do, but rather, in the prequel Old Man Hawkeye, we learned that Venom had bonded to Multiple Man. He wanted revenge on Hawkeye for killing some of his clones, and in the process Hawkeye and Kate Bishop had lured him into the wild, aka the Savage Land, where he was devoured by a T-Rex. The same one that he managed to bond with and then chase Hawkeye and Logan with, so I guess sometimes you win some. And at number 9, EXOMORPH RHINO. Here is an alternate version that exists within the 616 universe. Spider-Woman Maddie Franklin ends up taking on this concoction in 2000's Spider-Woman Volume 3 Issue 11. The EXOMORPH RHINO is an amalgamated version of Venom, Dr. Octopus, and of course, RHINO. Spider-Woman ends up fighting against him and in the process discovers that he can reshape the environment with his brain. And then Madam Web gets involved in the brawl as well. While he's not a version that manages to stick around all that long, he is scary AF and definitely proves to be a worthy foe of Maddie's. Moving on to number 8, Magic Venom. Another alternate that popped up in the 616, here we have Magic Venom. So let's backtrack a wee bit. In Venom Volume 4 Issue 13, after Eddie Brock was separated from Venom, he and his son end up in the middle of Malekith's invasion. Eddie Brock decides to be a hero and takes them on, which draws the attention of the Dark Elf's War Witches, who gives him something called a Dreamstone, which grants its holder the gift of having their dreams and desires brought to light. Where do I get one of those? So Eddie gets his hands on it, and what does he do? Well, he wishes to become Venom once again, but this time he's got a new look because of the stone. He's lean, he's still mean, and he's ghoulish and covered in spikes, of course. The downside? Well, this version of Venom is quite murderous and has no mind of its own, causing some good old rampant fun. Moving on to number 7, probably my personal favorite on this list, a pigeon. Yes, I am sorry, but we had to include this one on the list. In the Spider-Cat universe, which yes, it does exist, look it up, it's great, which appeared in Spider Island, I Love New York City, issue 1, we see a version of Spider-Man that is, in fact, a kitty cat. Yes! Sorry, it's just too hilarious and wonderful to not mention. And the alternate version of Venom that appears in this universe comes in the form of a pigeon. Pigeons are great, guys. I know a lot of people see them as flying rats, but, you know, they got little hearts and souls too, guys. They're little creatures who can love. Now when Spider-Cat is chilling on a rooftop, his spider sense tingles, or kitty sense. Kitty spidey sense? Spider-Cat sense. Sitting on a telephone wire across from him is a pigeon whom Spider-Cat declares to, "You've got a lot of nerve coming here, Venom Pigeon." The two then duke it out, there's a slew of jokes about how many lives Spider-Cat has, and then he beats the crap out of the pigeon, only to reveal more Venom pigeons. And then we pull out of the panel to see that it's all just a video game. Except, Spider-Cat is real, chilling in the room where the video game is being played, and he quietly slinks out of a window putting on a mask to presumably fight more Venom pigeons. Or at least I hope. And at number 6, the MC2 Carnage. If you have a sick sense of humor like we do, you'll probably really enjoy the MC2 version of Carnage, otherwise known as Specimen 297. Now in the MC2, Spider-Man is Spider-Girl, and Carnage bonds with her friend Moose, who wanted to use the symbiote to cure his father's cancer. It backfires a little with the symbiote also infecting Spider-Girl's little brother, which was a bit of a mindfuck for her heroine. She eventually uses a sonic blaster to defeat Carnage, seemingly for good, but the symbiote would appear later on in the timeline, sort of, when samples of it was used by the government on a clone of Spider-Girl's, who then kills the real Spider-Girl and eventually becomes a homicidal vigilante, so... And at 5, Venomized X-23. Now to be fair, there were a lot of dope Venomized characters who first appeared in the Venomverse story arc, and all of them are pretty great. But for the sake of this list, we decided to go with Venomized X-23, or rather a Venomized version of Laura Kinney, which looked a lot like a Venomized Wolverine, because she is technically Wolverine, or was at one point. Her origin story on her home of Earth 24398 begins fairly similar to the one that we're familiar with from Earth 616, except when she escapes the Weapon X facility, she does so by accidentally freeing the Venom symbiote, who then bonds with her and helps her gain her freedom. Now on the run, she befriends some street kids who she ends up sharing parts of the symbiote with in order to help protect them prior to her being recruited by Venomized Captain America to help fight against the poisons in the main Venomverse storyline. Also, she looks super dope. So, moving on to number 4, Ultimate Marvel Carnage from 1610. The Ultimate Universe on Earth 1610 is home to modernized and much more grim versions of Marvel characters. Praised for how dark and raw much of it felt, it is also the home to a terrible story event that pretty much caused its downfall, Ultimatum, which saw a slew of unnecessary character deaths. All that aside, it did give us versions that we absolutely adore, including Ultimate Carnage. Now this version of Carnage is a self-regenerating vampiric organism. What? Right? Isn't that cool? Absolutely bananas. It was created from the DNA of Peter Parker and the Lizard, with the organism only wanting to feed on the DNA of others in order to stabilize itself. Eventually, it turns into a damaged form of Richard Parker, Peter's dad, causing a particularly brutal brawl between the two. Up next at 3, Spider-Man 2099. Hailing from Earth 928, which takes place in the year 2099, this alternate version of Venom who appears in the Spider-Man 2099 comics is Cron Stone, who just so happens to be Spider-Man Miguel O'Hara's older half-brother. Cron was abused as a child by their android housekeeper and was so unstable that he actually tried to kill Miguel after he discovered that he was his half-brother. Cron himself was almost murdered, but as he lay in a sewer, he was saved by the Venom symbiote who bonded with him. The symbiote mutated over the years, giving Cron new abilities compared to the 616 Venom, which includes acidic blood and saliva. How very alien. Their whole story is really messed up, and eventually the symbiote ditches Cron and bonds with the son of Namor, fleeing into the ocean, never to be seen again. Although later on, part of the symbiote itself was studied at the Alchemix lab. Up next, number 2, Venomized Galactus. Oh, Venomized Galactus is yet another alternate version from the 616 that makes an appearance on our list, although a short-lived appearance unfortunately, despite looking super dope. This version came to be when Mysterio created an illusion of a venomized Galactus while fighting Spider-Man in Web of Spider-Man issue 90, volume 1 from 1992, which just so happened to be Spider-Man's 30th anniversary, with a holographic cover. Gotta love the 90s. Anywho, Mysterio creates a bunch of different illusions to mess with Peter's head, including this fellow, who shouts out, "We are mad now, Spider. Venom will be the star. We are going to crush you like the little bug that you are for good," but also looking like Galactus in a Venom suit, which is kind of adorable. And finally, at number 1, Ultimate Venom. Introduced in Ultimate Spider-Man issue 33, this version of Venom from Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe, was literally designed to look monstrous, versus looking like a supervillain, described by his creators as a huge, cancerous/tumorous creature. And that's pretty on point, just look at him. The Ultimate Venom isn't fully sentient like the 616 Venom, but it still has a will of its own and can act independently of whoever it is bonded to. When bonded, Eddie Brock described the experience as having two minds, his own and another filled with nothing but ravenous hunger. The other neat thing about it is that it had an overwhelming desire to be bonded to, or to consume, Spider-Man, and was willing to ditch whatever host it was bonded to in order to achieve this desire. And it didn't matter the Spider-Man either, guys. He was down for Peter Parker or Miles Morales. This Venom wanted both those boys, so.
Number 10. Cyborg Superman. What if Superman was the Terminator? That's basically what this version of Superman is. He comes to us from the reign of Superman and is actually Hank Henshaw. Well, Hank Henshaw's brain inside a cyborg, more specifically. After Hank's brain is transferred to the cyborg, he decides to become Superman. Cause I mean, why not? His plan is to use the alias of Superman in order to destroy Metropolis with a nuclear missile. So a little more insidious than Terminator really, who is only targeting one person, Sarah Connor. He ends up being outed as a fake and being taken down by the real Superman. Well, he's not better than Superman in terms of power level. A cyborg version of the hero just seems a little more interesting to me. Number 9. Centaur Superman. Yeah, Superman turns into a freaking centaur in this weird 90s comic miniseries called Whom Gods Destroy. It's really a bizarre one, but you should also read it. Even before Superman undergoes the transformation, I really like this alternate because it gets to explore what the world is like when it actually ages, but Kal-El obviously does not. In this reality, Lois and Lana are now elderly women and have to deal with the fact that Superman hasn't really physically aged. Mentally, Superman is starting to become detached from the world. In comic books, we don't really have a realistic representation of the passage of time because no one is ever allowed to really get old. This series explores that a bit. Then it also gets really weird when we find out that Germany is ruled by Nazis and the god Adonis. Superman gets turned into an evil centaur, Lois becomes Wonder Woman, Lana becomes the Oracle of Delphi. It's strange, but also through the combination of mythology and comics, we get to see the characters' internal struggles reflected in the transformations that they undergo. It's just a really interesting exploration of Superman's internal crises. And then it gets a happy ending where all three live in a polyamorous love triangle on the moon in Superman's Fortress of Solitude. Aww. Number 8. Ultraman. So evil, he's so evil. This evil version of Superman may not be using his powers for good, but other than that huge con, he has some pretty big pros. Superman's weaknesses becoming Ultraman's strengths being one of the big ones. Kal-El is weakened by kryptonite, but for Ultraman it only makes him stronger. Also, DC gave Superman a weakness to magic because otherwise he'd obviously be too OP, right? Well, Ultraman is just that much more OP because he doesn't have this weakness either. He actually has murdered many magic using gods on his own Earth. So he's simply better for capability. Sure, the sun weakens him, but he can still beat Superman any night of the week. As long as you don't mind the evil part. You don't mind the evil part, do you? We're all a little bored of Superman's goody two-shoes act, right? I don't mind the evil part. Number 7. Injustice. Okay, so admittedly this Superman is a lot darker than the OG, but I kind of love that about him. Sorry guys, I really love dark superheroes. You know me, the closer the superhero is to walking that line of supervillainy, the more I am into them. The Injustice games have great alternate versions of almost every favorite DC character out there. Superman's story and the story of the game itself is set into motion after Joker tricks him into believing Lois is Doomsday, which causes her death and the death of Superman and Lois's unborn baby. This plus the destruction of Metropolis makes Superman just lose it. He kills the Joker and sets out to bring about world peace through world domination. At the end of the game, if you choose him to win against Batman, he even uses Brainiac technology to control Bruce's mind. Would you want to live in a peaceful Superman-controlled world? Number 6. British Superman. This version of Superman appears in a one-shot that was written by Kim Johnson and, get this, John Cleese. Its hilarity and British humor is what makes Kelvin Kent, this alternate version of Kal-El, stand out. The one-shot explores the idea of what would happen if the little Kryptonian baby crash-landed in England. He grows up on a farm with his adoptive parents in the countryside, and it takes a while for him to use his powers, because his parents actually would prefer if he didn't. They think that if anyone were to ever find out, they would fear and hate their son, so they tell him to not use them and just keep them hidden. Be a good British boy. It's even how he starts wearing glasses. His dad actually gives him a pair of specs that were inside the ship that transported Calvin to Earth. These specs help to prevent Kal-El from using his heat vision abilities. He finally does decide to start using his powers when he sees innocent people in danger. In that moment, he dons a Superman suit with the Union Jack on the front, and that becomes his costume for the rest of the one-shot. All in all, it's just a colorful comic to read. Even the Queen of England approves of this version of Superman. How can you deny the Queen of England? You probably can't, actually. Monarchs are not cool. I mean, sometimes they're. Mixed bag. Number 5. Kal-El. What if we could have a world where Superman was in charge, but not oppressively so? Well, that exists if you turn to Earth 23. There we have Kal-El, who is built in the vein of Barack Obama. He is the son of Laura and Jor-El, who managed to save him by putting him on a rocket ship just before their planet of Krypton was destroyed. He was raised by the Ellis family, who found him. They raised him as their own, christening him Calvin Ellis. And in his universe, he grew up to become the President of the United States, fighting for truth, justice, liberty, and equality from both sides. Even Lois Lane of Earth 45 says that Calvin must be Superman done right. He ends up being the one Superman who manages to defeat Superdoom of Earth 45, who is basically an evil robot created by Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, and Clark Kent. Number 4. Captain Marvel. Earth 5's Superman counterpart is actually DC's Captain Marvel, and who doesn't love Billy Batson? This version of Billy has a history that presumably mirrors that of the main continuity, but we don't really know for sure as it's never actually confirmed or dug into. Captain Marvel is really just a more lighthearted version of Superman, as he's a kid in an adult's body, which makes him just a little bit more fun. Who as a kid would not want to be a superhero? He joined the Supermen of the multiverse to help Superman defeat the Mandrake the first time. After Mandrake was defeated, Superman knew he would return, so Captain Marvel went out to help recruit even more alternate Supermen for their team. Number 3. Captain Alan Adams. Adams was a member of Superman's Supermen team in Superman Beyond. After encountering the new Mandrake, Superman had Captain Marvel venture off to assemble a team of Supermen from across the multiverse. Monitor Zilovala and Captain Marvel recruit Captain Alan Adams from Earth 4. He is a combination of Captain Atom and Dr. Manhattan in terms of his characterization and abilities. His abilities include telekinesis, superior intellect and mental capacity, enhanced senses and perception, quantum superposition, which allows him to make copies of himself of various sizes, and reality alteration. He was even able to combine the minds of Ultraman and Superman together in the fight against Mandrake, creating another insanely powerful alternate version basically of himself. Number 2. Super Demon. One of Superman's greatest weaknesses is magic, right? I've said that like 3 times in this video. But what if it was one of his greatest strengths instead? We get to explore this idea with Super Demon of Earth 13. He is a combination of Etrigan and Superman. Super Demon's powers include magic, Hellfire Vision, which is similar to Superman's heat vision, super strength and speed, and fire breath. Plus he's a demon, so he can call on his demon heritage for extra strength. He fights against vampires who invaded his world and imprisoned him and his fellow teammates from the League of Shadows. He even had to go up against another strange alternate of Superman in the fight against the vampires, Vampire Ultraman. Yeah, Earth 13 is pretty weird and pretty great. Vampires everywhere. Number 1. Super Soldier. Coming to us from Amalgam Comics, this version of Superman is a combination of Marvel's Captain America and DC's Superman. Super Soldier is the ultimate golden boy of the comic world as such. Combining the ideals of these two characters has to give you the most purely good comic book character in comic book history. Super Soldier was originally Clark Kent, who was transformed after being exposed to the Super Soldier Serum and solar radiation. This experimental process granted him superpowers. He's basically a stronger, even sweeter version of Superman. His pals Jimmy Olsen and Agent Peggy take on Hydra, and Clark Kent loses his love interest Lois Lane to Lex Luthor when she marries him. Lex Luthor later transforms into villain Green Skull after injecting himself with Green K, which is Super Soldier's version of kryptonite. This gives him a longer lifespan but also turns his skin green.
Number 10. Kingdom Come. Kingdom Come is a famous miniseries from 1996 with gorgeous art throughout by Alex Ross. This is an Elseworld story featuring an aged superhero population who have largely moved on to make way for the next generation. However, they're largely meta spawn and new heroes are much more violent and more anti-hero-y, so brutal. The type of hero when they tell you they saved you, you go, but did you though? This project was pitched as similar in scope to Watchmen. Is it? You decide. In this universe, Catwoman is retired and she runs a multi-billion-dollar cosmetics company. So maybe the 2004 Catwoman took a note from this, but then was like, you know what else is awesome? The Silver Age and basketball. Catwoman is mostly seen in the background and hanging out with the Riddler, who has such a good redemption arc main verse, then they retconned it and now they're trying to make him some kind of like god tier villain, so we'll see how that goes. I like the idea of Catwoman just having an awesome life, with or without Bruce. Number 9. Catwoman Beyond. Batman Beyond, Batman of the Future. Once the animated series ended, there was a comic series that continued on in that universe. And in that series, there were some more legacy villains introduced. One of those was Catwoman. But this was a very different Catwoman from Selina. This Catwoman was the daughter of Danton Black, a villain known as Multiplex. He was a Firestorm villain, whose name makes me think of a parking garage. She goes by Black, and she inherited her father's duplication abilities. However, she can't make limitless copies of herself, she can only make 9. Hence, Catwoman is a choice, because cats have 9 lives. I don't know, I'd always be afraid the other copies would try and take me out, like the Batman episode. An underrated series that had some solid episodes. Check it out. She would start off having a rivalry with Terry McGinnis, Batman, or the Tomorrow Knight as they sometimes call him, but would eventually end up liking him and help him when Hush resurfaced. So it was a fun dynamic. Catwoman of the future. Number 8. Catwoman Batman Ninja. Batman Ninja, what an experience. The Japanese samurai AU film that nobody asked for but most are okay with existing. So Batman is sent back in time to feudal Japan, and it turns out that everybody got there before him and established themselves because of how they got back. They got back via a quake engine, and Batman was furthest away from the explosion, so he got there last. The Joker is already running samurai, so Batman is told what is going on by Catwoman, who is just rocking it in feudal Japan. The two of them need to team up and go to the quake engine while dealing with Gotham's criminals who have become crime lords. I love the idea that they would all overcome language and custom barriers and become crime lords and, you know, not just die of period typical diseases. That's the dream. Going back in time is only cool if you don't think about it too hard. My time travel threshold would be like 1980. Ooh, so far back in time. Leg warmers. Number 7. EARTHA KITT. If I could roll my R's for EARTHA, I would, but I can't and it'd never be as good anyway. EARTHA KITT was the second actress to play Catwoman on the 60s series. This was a big deal, particularly for the time. She was the first African-American actress to portray Catwoman. They just went for it. She meshes so well with the rest of the cast, and of course has the requisite chemistry with Batman, though they play that down because it's the 60s and that's still scandalous. They couldn't even show the her and KIRK kiss, which is around the same time period, face on. They had to shoot it to the side, you know, in case some old ladies somewhere fainted, clutching pearls, or, you know, something more sinister. That could have happened. The 60s Batman series is remembered for its camp, but it was clever and pushed boundaries and had some great performances, like EARTHA KITT as Catwoman. Also, she had a song, I Wanna Be Evil, that is perfect for her role in this. If you can handle the different style of old TV, then def check her out. Just the poise and confidence she oozes the entire time. She loves being Catwoman, and you, the audience, love her too. Number 6. Catwoman, Guardian of Gotham. So in this story, she's just Batman. Her parents are Thomas and Martha Kyle, gunned down in front of her in an alley. And if that happens to anyone, you become a vigilante. Something about alleyways that just make you crave justice and vengeance. So why did she become Catwoman? Well, she ran into that alley after a stray cat. Still better than a bat flying through your window though. Selina is a no-nonsense protector of Gotham City, going up against the mysterious and sinister Batman, whose design I love. He looks very vampiric. Yet at the same time, she becomes involved with and even marries Bruce Wayne. It's a cool series, but it's very heavy on the cheesecake, and this is me saying it so you know they must have used like 2 extra tubs of cheese. It's not the bustier that you could not possibly fight crime in. Do you know how tight those things are? You could break your hand. Maybe it's armor. No, it's Femme Two-Face, who is wearing half business skirt, half dominatrix thong combo on the other side. This series is 2 issues and full of 90s goodness. Check it out if you haven't already. This Selina could break your arm just by looking at you, and it's great. Purple lipstick. Number 5. The Nail, Batwoman. JLA The Nail is a famous Elseworld story where in the course of history is drastically altered because the Kents hit a nail on the road while going home, and hence never find Clark. The Justice League and other heroes still emerge, but it looks very different. One of the characters who this really affects is Selina Kyle, Kyle, who is declared not insane by doctors at Arkham, but more someone who loves a thrill, hence her game of cat and mouse with Batman. She actually ends up joining Batman as Batwoman. This is after the death of Robin at the hands of the Joker, which temporarily pushes Bruce over the edge, but Selina and Alfred help get him out of it. But there's this really awkward panel of Selina in the Robin costume that people just love to take out of context, and it looks really odd out of context. Just why? Batman and Selina team up for the win. It could work, you know, unless it's animated Hush. Oh my god, Bruce, I changed for you. Why won't you change for me? Why won't you just kill people? The Nail, worth reading, and so is its less than equal sequel. Number 4, Selina, Gotham by Gaslight. Gotham by Gaslight is a classic Elseworld story, but the adaptation made changes, and that is what we have to thank for Selina's appearance here. The film adaptation would see her become an important player, whereas in the comics she hadn't appeared at all, and she has a more classic non-Frank Miller stripper origin, so yay! She's a socialite who initially is seen campaigning for more police involvement against Jack the Ripper. So in this series she's a theater star, cabaret to be exact, which would be way more scandalous than this movie ever acknowledges. It's a classy, acceptable peep show. She ends up getting involved with Bruce and helping with his investigation and, well, Batmaning, and she knows who he is and all of that. She ends up being crucial to the denouement, which is very different from the comic ending and polarizing. Some love it and are all, woo, vast improvement, and others are, why are you like this? Number 3, Batman Leatherwing. Period piece pirate Catwoman from the 18th century. Capitana Felina, a Spanish Contessa, the cat captain. She fights for loot and equality on the 7 seas. Also, Batman, who she is trying to take down, is Captain Leatherwing. Just very embarrassing all around. This all went down in Detective Comics Annual number 7. Batman is still dressed like Batman, but as a pirate, for reasons. He still has a Robin. And Catwoman, we're talking 90s Catwoman here, people, like cat ears, running a pirate ship, cracking the whip, literally. If you like your period piece AUs and you haven't read this one, it might be a fun one to add to your list. I promise nothing, form your own opinion. Number 2, Batman Returns. The sequel to Tim Burton's Batman changing film, The Batman. It's remembered for a few reasons. Chief amongst them is Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. This is a very different take on Catwoman, a meek employee transformed after learning too much and a murder attempt. This culminates in a head injury that changes her personality and causes her to snap and become Catwoman. That did not happen, it's sad. She then cobbles together an iconic leather costume. Pfeiffer redefined Catwoman for a brief moment, to the point that when the 90s animated series was in production, Selina was designed to look like her, rather than her more traditional raven-haired appearance. This Catwoman had a tragic manic edge and formed a genuine connection with both Bruce Wayne and Batman. This resulted in a chemistry that fans wanted to see more of. Unfortunately, Burton wasn't interested in doing a sequel to that film, so instead we got Batman Forever, which, super unpopular opinion, I think is worse than Batman and Robin. I await your judgment. Number 1, Injustice. Injustice Gods Among Us is just a cool universe in general. So Catwoman has a very similar Year 1 origin going on here, but all that changes when Superman snaps. Selina sides with Bruce against the regime at first, but ultimately joins it and tries to see what she can do / what she can learn from within, and of course making sure she stays safe. This would drive a huge wedge in her relationship with Batman. You know he draws lines in the sand. Hard lines. Like everyone in the Injustice verse, she's just well fleshed out, so I guess this is just check out the Injustice universe. So cool, and spawned from an okay game, but great comic. Number 10, the Bat-Mage. Batman and magic. Batman isn't one of those heroes who's all magic, what is that? No, he knows it exists and, well, doesn't care for it, but acknowledges that it also has its uses. And so we have an alternate version who was a mage. I just love the idea of a magical Batman, cause you know it's dark magic, only the finest sorcery for our Dark Knight. This is Bat-Mage, and he doesn't exist anymore, but that's fine, he lives on in our hearts. This is Earth 33, where technology has advanced because of magic. Here there is a rivalry between the Cobblepots and the Waynes, and a Cobblepot sorcerer murdered Bruce's parents. So it's time for magical vengeance, I mean justice. Initially, Bruce just wanted to learn magic to take down the Cobblepots. The Penguin, not the Penguin, the sorcerer Cobblepot. But the more he studied the dark arts, he realized that evil had permeated into the city itself, and what better way to fight dark magic than with more dark magic? Okay, look, Batman is a fight fire with fire kind of person. He would eventually join the League of Shamans to bring peace to the world. And what happened to him? Well, after Flashpoint, he was erased from existence. Thanks a lot, Barry. Number 9, Batman from Earth 2. So when the multiverse was first introduced, it was just two Earths. Earth 1, which was the home of the new Silver Age heroes, so Barry Allen Flash, Hal Jordan Green Lantern, etc. And Earth 2, which was now populated by the Golden Aged heroes, who had also aged the appropriate amount of time between Golden and Silver Ages. However, here's where it gets a little convoluted. Superman and Batman existed on both Earths, but on Earth 2 they were older versions of themselves, who were continuing on with their adventures. This allowed for the birth of in-universe legacy characters. So Batman, Bruce, would age and retire. He would marry Catwoman and have a daughter, Helena Wayne, the Huntress. He would come to a tragic end though, when he would be forced out of retirement and would die in the confrontation. It's grim, yes, but it's cool that it ends. Earth 2 is a solid universe. Good Earth. Would visit. Number 8. Batman, Book of the Dead. An Elseworlds Batman inspired by Egyptian mythology and symbolism. So he's Moon Knight. Okay, real talk. Batman and Moon Knight have always been really different. To all the people saying that Moon Knight is Marvel's Batman, stop. That's real reductionist. That's like saying, so Iron Man is Marvel's Batman. I can feel some of you going, but he is. So in this story, Batman's parents are archaeologists, involved in uncovering a conspiracy of an ancient Egyptian bat god who is erased from existence. So don't look him up, he's not real. I see you, DC. Clever. However, when they uncovered this bat god, they're murdered, because the world is not ready for such knowledge. While young Bruce is inspired by the bat cartouche the murderer was trying to get, and becomes a pretty cool looking Batman. There are 2 issues of this, and it was released in 1999, and I hope you like Stargate, cause major Stargate vibes. Also aliens, cause you know aliens built the pyramids, ancient aliens. Oh, and the bat god's name is Necroon, by the way, or Necron, depends how you want to pronounce it. I love the idea of just bat symbols all over Egyptian hieroglyphs. Bruce is real emo in this comic. It's honestly way better than it has any right to be. Is being inspired by a cartouche better than a bat flying in through your window? I think it is. Number 7. Batman, Golden Streets of Gotham. Batman, but during the Industrial Revolution. So Bruno Vainco is a laborer who returns to Gotham after years of working away and is horrified to discover that his parents were burned to death in an industrial fire because of negligence, Batman's true arch nemesis. Also, the boss let them get burnt alive, Joseph Chillingham. So he begins looking for evidence to try and bring him down, but he's inspired to work outside the law. Also, this involved the Joker, Jack Smart. There was all kinds of nefarious stuff going on. He's inspired by Selena, by the way. She's a union boss. His costume that he adopts is very much of the stage, so he looks like a vaudevillian actor running around. I love it. Seriously, go check it out. This is a really cool Elseworlds story. He still adopts Dick Grayson, he works with Alfred, who's in the theater, fun stuff. The whole thing is narrated by old man Dick Grayson. Yeah. Number 6. Bat Lantern. Not Dawnbreaker, no negative multiverse stuff here, and not the ship. For those who got that, you're my people. No, this is Batman from the Elseworlds story in Darkest Night, where Batman is the Green Lantern. So take that, Jeff Johns. Batman can't wield a ring, who's too damaged. 1994 begs to differ. So Batman is just coming off his first crime-fighting night, you know, the terrible one, because that's a thing now. His first night out, awful. Well then, Avensur crashes nearby and is all, you're closer than Hal Jordan. Do you take this ring? So Bruce takes it and awaits instructions from the Guardians. So he becomes a Batman who is also Green Lantern. He has like a fusion costume that really makes me miss the ears, and you get to see him interacting with Hal's supporting cast. So Bruce ends up stopping Sinestro, which sets them up as arch nemeses, and Sinestro is ice cold. He hunts down Joe Chill. Seriously, Joe Chill is not hard to find. You didn't need the big magical comfy chair to tell you this, New 52 Bruce. This is a really credible Batman as the Green Lantern AU. Well thought out and fun to read. I'm down for this universe. Number 5. Wayne Williams. No, not that Wayne Williams. If you don't get my reference, don't worry, I'll explain. But aside from the name, this alternate version is pretty neat. So Wayne Williams is from the Just Imagine series, wherein the DC characters are re-envisioned as invented by Stan Lee, and it's published through DC Comics, so fun collab. His Batman is Wayne Williams. So his dad's a cop who gets killed in the line of duty, and then he goes down a bad path and he gets framed by a gang leader of Hands, with a Z, and then he vows revenge. He dresses as a bat because he becomes a wrestler to save money. So why is he Batman? Cuz, why not? But aside from that, it's an interesting story, and I like how hard his Batman mask goes. But his name... This came out in 2001, so there's no excuse. Wayne Williams is the name of the Atlanta child murderer. He was arrested in 1981. Just why? It's so uncomfortable. I feel like I'm on a watch list for saying his name so many times. Who else has your name? Have you ever looked it up? If it's a murderer, you're Google proof. Number 4. Telltale Batman. These games, quality content. The fun thing about them is that you spend so much time as Bruce Wayne as well as being Batman, and Bruce Wayne's life is stressful. You can actually just deal with problems as Bruce Wayne, so in a way I guess this number could be retitled You. You're a cool alternate Batman. Seriously though, playing as Batman is great fun, be it Telltale or Arkham, and everybody does it a little differently. Everybody's Batman is a little bit different. With Telltale you could also crowd play, which involved other people getting to watch and decide with you. Big fan, super fun. Playing with friends or future friends. I'm so peppy today. What's wrong with me? Bring back Bitter Betty. Number 3. Batman Gotham by Gaslight. This is the official first Elseworlds story, even though it wouldn't be labeled that way, and really there were more, but they didn't think of them that way until later. Also, it has a sequel everybody forgets about, Batman Master of the Future, which is a great title because it could mean whatever you want it to. So, the year is 1889. Batman. Go. So Bruce is studying under Freud, and he tells him about this recurring dream he has about doing his taxes. Just kidding, it's about the night his parents were killed. So he decides to go back to Gotham, and once there he finds a city overrun with gangs and grisly murders. Upon being shown a very Joker-style crime, Bruce is inspired to become Batman. He takes on a series of crimes that look an awful lot like the Ripper murders. So of course it's up to Batman to solve them and get falsely accused of them. Bruce is getting falsely accused left, right, and center. He just needs to not do anything. But even then, he'd probably still get accused of something. Also, this comic has a movie adaptation that changes the ending a la Hush, because that's a thing DC is doing now. Why? I have no idea. Like when the movie Watchmen changed the monster from the comics, I got it, and actually, unpopular opinion, thought it really worked. But this, well, now you have to read and watch to know what I'm talking about and how you feel about it. Number 2. Vampire Batman from the Batman Dracula trilogy. Of course, we have to talk about everybody's favorite vampire trilogy, Red Rain, Bloodstorm, and Crimson Mist. All centered around Batman's descent further and further into vampirism. This series is dark and gothic, the art is haunting, and Vampire Batman is tragic. Up his guilt to 100%. Now he also has to try to not feed, as he becomes a monster to defeat monsters. There's just a lot of paranormal happenings in this, such as Werecat Selina, and Batman hunting vampires. My favorite is probably Bloodstorm, but the art of Batman and Crimson Mist is terrifying. They actually revisited it recently at the time of this recording with The Secrets of Sinister House, which has a really heartbreaking Vampire Batman story in it. I won't spoil it, but he's trying so hard to not be scary and failing just as hard. It gave me all the feels. And number 1, Langstrom from Justice League Gods and Monsters. This was a direct DC animated movie release that does have a comic book tie-in that came after, well, at the same time, horizontal marketing. This release created a whole alternate Earth and world just cuz, and it's really neat. So in this world, Langstrom, who is Man-Bat in main continuity, becomes Batman after he accidentally turns himself into a vampire while trying to find a cure for lymphoma, and he involved the saliva of vampire bats. Big no-no. So he's cursed to be a creature of the night. He would spiral out of control until he met Superman, and the two would become friends and form the base of the Justice League, along with Becca of New Genesis, filling the role of Wonder Woman. This one is just a solid story, because it goes for it, and is like, where are Bruce, Clark, and Diana? Don't know and don't care, and neither should you. And you know what? You really don't. Well, I didn't anyway. Do you?
Number 10. Dr. Doom. The 2099 version of Dr. Doom has always been super interesting to me because he is even more anti-hero than his Earth 616 counterpart. For a time, people didn't even think that he was actually Victor Von Doom due to him being so young and originally entering 2099 without his standard facial scars or disfigurement. However, it was later revealed that it was actually Doom when he was forced to battle Eric Zerny, who was given some of his memories by Margareta, aka Neon Angel, in order to make the two duke it out. Neon Angel actually was sort of Dr. Doom's lover, but they like to play these weird games with each other, and this one ended up being viewed as her taking it a little too far. Doom won the fight and left her and Eric to die in their own base. Ooh, harsh. This Dr. Doom also successfully took over the US and had an era named after him, calling it Anno Doom in the Year of Doom. He also is consistently working in this time period to protect the people of Latveria, which he does anyways normally, but you really get to see the 2099 version of Doom fight hard to save them all from all kinds of destruction. Number 9. Daredevil. There are actually two different versions of Daredevil in the 2099 alternate world. One is Samuel Fisk, the grandson of Wilson Fisk, who struggles with his feelings revolving around his grandfather. He becomes Daredevil, but also tries to carry on the Kingpin legacy, despite feeling remorse for his grandfather's actions. The other is Eric Nelson. Nelson is the one that is cooler than his Earth 616 counterpart, to me. Don't get me wrong, Matt Murdock is awesome, but this version of the hero has a cooler costume to me. It's jet black, he looks like a wandering black hole soul or some demon creeping out from the dark with bright red glowing eyes. He summons his light batons, which he uses as projectiles or to fight close quarters with, which also just looks super cool. He's also a corporate lawyer. He actually gets his sensory powers from a man whose case he wouldn't take on, and was granted the powers in order to change his life from a safe one to a dangerous one and open him up to the corruption all around him. And as such, he dedicates his life to becoming a vigilante to help fight this corruption. Some people have speculated that he may be related to Foggy Nelson, Murdoch's partner. Number 8. Venom. Venom in 2099 is just amazing because of his connection to Spider-Man. Sure, Eddie Brock has a connection to the main continuity Spider-Man. He feels that Peter Parker ruined his life and is looking for vengeance. But the 2099 version is even more closely tied. He is Spider-Man's half-brother. The two actually share a father in Tyler Stone, who also exists in more 2099 continuities than you could possibly imagine. Cron Stone is a twisted individual who enjoys inflicting pain on others and hates his half-brother so much that he tries to kill him. When he bonded with the Venom symbiote and later had it wrenched from his body, it was revealed that the bond went down to a molecular level, meaning that Cron's body actually possesses properties of the symbiote just by itself. This version of Venom is just a closer tied rival to Spider-Man, especially when it was revealed in the Earth TRN 590 continuity that he knows 2099 Spider-Man's secret identity. He knows it's his half-brother in that suit. Number 7. Hulk. In 2099, John Eisenhart becomes the Hulk. Remember, 2099 is a time in the Marvelverse where we don't have any heroes. All the heroes of the 20th century are gone. Corrupt corporations rule the world. It's a very real world we could be facing as we watch history progress in the present day and watch people get greedier and greedier. John Eisenhart is a ruthless studio exec tasked with getting the movie rights for the Knights of Banner, a cult that worships the long since gone hero of the Hulk and stands for honor and integrity, who reside in California. Eisenhart learns that they are conducting gamma radiation experiments in an attempt to create a new Hulk to save us all from the evil corporations. When they won't agree to give him the rights to make a film about their story, he reports their illegal experiments to the police. This results in all of the knights getting brutally slaughtered in an attack by the police. Eisenhart manages to save one knight, Knight GWEN, from his death, but he feels super guilty about the other knights' deaths. And during the scuffle, the knight's gamma radiation device goes off and John is transformed into the Hulk. His version doesn't come with a feeling of guilt over being a monster, his version comes with a feeling of guilt of his actions, and through his time as Hulk, he actually fights to redeem himself. Number 6. Dr. Octopus. So, there's an interesting thing to understand about the 2099 universe, and that is that it's comprised of multiple Earths. There is Earth 928 and Earth TRN 590 primarily, but there's also a bunch of other ones. This is important to understand because there are some characters who are different depending on which Earth we are talking about, and TRN 590 has been used to change identities of characters or to retcon characters' backstories or even introduce some new characters. This villain, though, only exists in TRN 590 Earth. Not much is known about this version of Dr. Octopus, so you might be wondering how I know that they are better than our 616 Doc Ock, but that's a simple query to answer. They're actually a freaking octopus! Well, I mean, they're still humanoid, but this version of Doc Ock is an Atlantean scientist who is a humanoid octopus, so yeah, just basically the coolest looking and the most sensical in terms of his name. Number 5. Moon Knight. You don't need to know much about this version of Moon Knight to know how much cooler she is. If you are a fan of Moon Knight, you will know that he is often presented as someone who gets his power from the Egyptian moon god Khonshu, and thus the moon itself. Well, in 2099, this Moon Knight actually fights crime on the moon, where both immigrants of the Earth and the Inhumans reside. She defends those who live on the moon, acting as their protector. Many believe that she is actually a ghost. Oh yeah, and this version of Moon Knight is obviously also a woman. We never get to know her identity sadly, but imagine how powerful Moon Knight would be on the moon. What? Number 4. Vulture. The 2099 version of Vulture is just a more terrifying version than that of Earth 616. Not much is known about him, we don't even know his real name, but you don't need to know that to be scared of this guy. The Vulture of Earth 616, Adrian Toomes, is usually presented as being old and kind of frail looking, bald and lean like a vulture. 2099 Vulture, especially in Earth 928, is swole. A big muscle-bound man who stumbles upon a flying contraption that's possibly the one that was last used by the former villain of the main continuity. Who knows? This Vulture is also a cannibal and was even a cannibal before he adopted the alias. All I can imagine is him circling a dying human and then swooping in for a bite of their flesh. Ugh, scary stuff. Number 3. Spider-Man. In the 2099 universe, Miguel O'Hara is Spider-Man. What's so much better than him when compared with his Earth 616 counterpart? His suit is pretty cool, all iterations of it, but I especially like his red spider mask that he wears, the spikes that usually adorn his arms. And also, he isn't perfect. Not that Peter Parker is perfect either, but what I really like most about 2099 heroes is that they generally tend to live in a very ignorant world. 2099 is a very corrupt time, and most people are too full of themselves or too busy to notice, much like the world we live in today in 2019. Miguel ends up discovering his ignorance in his journey to become a hero, which is what makes him so great and so relatable. He's not perfect. He's arrogant, ignorant, and sometimes downright cruel, but as he becomes a hero, he becomes more self-aware and ultimately a better person. Number 2. Ghost Rider. Because he's so much more future in a way that is amazing. This version of Ghost Rider imagines him tied to a technological world, not a magical one, making him in a sense more realistic. Well, realistic if you believe in the ultimate power of AI in the future. Kenshiro Zero Cochrane was a hacker who ran with the gang Hotwire Martyrs. Futuristic worlds where we have gangs of hackers. I super dig it. Their gang was in possession of some heavily encrypted info when they were attacked by the artificial kids. With a Z, of course. Kids. The hacker kids ended up killing the martyrs, but Cochrane managed to get away. However, he had been shot by a tech bullet that was eating away at his nervous system, effectively killing him. Before he died, he managed to transfer the file to his girlfriend and download himself into cyberspace. There he awoke to the Ghostworks, a network of AI intelligence that wanted Cochrane to return as their agent and help fix the world, which they feared was on a decline. Should civilization collapse, tech would also be threatened and they would kind of cease to exist. They wanted to fix the way things were run so that this wouldn't happen. Cochrane agreed and was downloaded into a warbot, becoming the new Ghost Rider. Kind of a combo of Ghost Rider and Terminator. Pretty cool. Number 1. Alchemax. If you're fairly familiar with Marvel's 2099 continuity, you will probably have heard of Tyler Stone and Alchemax. Alchemax was originally an evil corporation that is often at the center of most conflicts in the 2099 world. That is when Dr. Doom isn't. It's better than its 616 counterpart because it actually ends up being more important in the 2099 world. It also goes from being a corporation that provides many different services and products to consumers in a way that gives it an evil amount of power, they even have their own division of the police, to being run later by Miguel O'Hara, 2099 Spider-Man, and being repurposed as a good corporation. Meanwhile, on Earth 616, it's just a small fish in an ocean full of larger villainous threats.